Hello, and welcome to another edition of Your Therapist Needs Therapy, special holiday edition. So I'm just double dipping. The YouTube channel will get to see my lovely face while I talk at the screen for this podcast. Tis the season of holidays. Last week's episode was about holiday boundary setting with the wonderfully talented Emily Alexie, therapist who I vibe very well with, who does a lot of great work. So if you are looking for practical advice around boundaries and how to navigate some of that, listen to last week's episode. If you did listen to last week's episode and you heard me say, well, shit, the concept of moral injury is a whole nother episode. Hey, spoilers. That's what we're doing this week. I wasn't planning to do that this week, but honestly, it was going to be a nightmare to get a guest on short notice on a holiday week. So here I am doing a solo episode, which is almost always a tell that I just didn't schedule a guest. Sometimes guests cancel and things fall through, but every so often I just get tired of the scheduling that comes with having my own podcast. So, but yes, it's the holiday season, and that means dealing with family drama, last week's episode, but also dealing with this tension that comes from participating, being coerced into, having to witness other people engage in ritual practices, in traditions that aren't aligned with our value system. And that's sort of what we talk about as moral injury. Moral injury is a concept that has been around for a while. We've studied it in soldiers in acts of war and things where people are in those life or death type situations, and the things they do to survive, or the things they do because they were ordered to, or the things that they did because they were told one thing when another thing was going on. And so moral injury is not a new concept, but charting it out here and explaining it to folks in the concept of what I do, which is working with late diagnosed ADHD, ASD folks, working with the queer community, working with religious trauma, and honestly, even my bread and butter, what I've done my entire career, which has been romantic relationships. Working with holidays brings out those family drama tensions, but it also brings out this tension that hey, this thing doesn't align with me, this thing is harmful to me, or this thing is just the best case scenario, this thing is just devoid of meaning for me. And so this moral injury, again, we're working against something, we're going against something, we are being forced into an experience that does not align with our value system. And that's harmful, right? There's psychological, emotional, somatic fallout. Our body has to do some of that work. And again, it can be, it doesn't even need to be that we're complying with it or we're complicit in the process. You can abscond from shopping on Black Friday, and if you're living your life in an anti-capitalist lens, the idea that Black Friday is going on, and the idea that there are people who are participating in it, perhaps even people that we love and care about participating in it, that doesn't feel good, right? And I think that's minor, personal opinion here, not therapy opinion here. I think that's minor compared to, right, going to a family gathering where you are going to be othered, your identity is going to be singled out as being wrong or sinful, or you're going to be asked to leave your partner at home. Again, I think there are moral injuries that go beyond, hey, I was born into a society doing a thing that doesn't vibe with my ethics, and I have to witness that. But I think it is different than sort of cognitive dissonance. I think it's different than just guilt or shame. Again, I've talked at length about guilt and shame on the podcast before. I don't think shame is a particularly useful feeling. I think it is something that gets weaponized and is a misfire in our brain. Guilt is this concept of, hey, we could be doing something different. And I do think there's some guilt. But again, I don't think it's personal failing so much as awareness that the system is unjust. And I think it's that triggering that comes along with injustice that sort of makes us react this way. So, I'm recording the week before Thanksgiving. Maybe you're listening as you're driving somewhere. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I mean, what is Thanksgiving in America? Thanksgiving is a whitewashed myth of participation between indigenous cultures and the early settlers, and how that collaboration kept the colonizers alive, who then turned around and committed genocide. Now, the myth doesn't include the genocide piece. Again, it's just very hard for me to like trot out the propaganda line. Uh, the genocide started happening with Columbus in 1492, right? Like the idea that Pilgrim Rock, or the Mayflower, Pinto, and Santa Maria. Gosh, I went to Lutheran elementary school. Forgive me if I don't have great social history knowledge. I can tell you a lot about the Bible, not about history. I did get the whitewashed Christian version, obviously. And so, yeah, Thanksgiving is this idea of the early settlers were really struggling, and thank goodness the indigenous folks helped them out and shared, and we should be thankful. And so on this holiday, we get together and we share and are thankful. That's not what happens, right? Like there was colonization going on, and um, yeah, I mean, the indigenous communities could not fathom what the colonizers were going to do. They were helpful because being helpful was part of their community, and sharing resources made sense because humans have dignity and deserve to be cared for. And that isn't what European colonizers were interested in. And I think, again, so that ongoing genocide, that genocide that has never really stopped. When you look at the data and statistics in North America around indigenous women who are um, missing, and just nothing happens. If you look at the ongoing funding of federal nutrition to indigenous land and on reservations, like again, the genocide has gone so far as to not be as active as it once was, but this is a genocide that's been going on since then. And so, yeah, like saying I'm going to celebrate a myth that covers up a genocide might not feel very good for you. Now, again, I don't even know that most people celebrate Thanksgiving that way. I think Thanksgiving has become, in sort of the traditional way that ritual in America goes from somewhat meaningful myth making to like devoid of any meaning habit, and then for capitalistic purposes. Thanksgiving is a big travel day to get together with family, and you indulge in a extravagant meal, and you watch football. And I don't know, like, do people watch the Macy's Day Parade? I think it's still a thing. I'm sure it's on. A few years back, I did turn the TV on in the morning on Thanksgiving Day. I think because I thought there was football on in the morning. But it was on and it was terrible. It was like 3 commercials for 1 balloon, and I had a small kid at the time, and I was like, maybe they'd like the balloons. Like, it's just very boring, and it's just a long, long running ad. So again, maybe if you're there in person, it's cool to see giant Spider-Man balloons. That does sound somewhat fun. But again, like that's if you're there having the personal experience, maybe. Otherwise, on TV in the capitalistic hellhole that we live in, that is our mediascape, it's ad after ad after ad. It's even while the program is on, people are promoting whatever stores and sponsors and all those things. Like it's brutal to watch. Now, I don't watch a lot of live TV. Sports is pretty much the only exception to that, which is really just the Packers. And I watch pro wrestling too, but I stream it, and so you can just watch it on a little bit of a lag and fast forward through those commercials. I watch AEW, not WWE. Just to clarify, I'm not participating in the mega adjacent company. I haven't since like 2011. I'll make a long video about pro wrestling someday when I needs event for 3 hours. But that family sit down, have a huge meal, watch football. Maybe we're playing in the backyard. Maybe we're jumping in a pile of leaves. Maybe we're sharing what we're grateful for. I like that's not anything, right? Like an excuse to get together with family, fine, I guess. If we had capacity, if we had a system in our society where family was meaningful, and it just simply isn't. The nuclear family, who you live with in your household, has become important because it's the only community that capitalism allows for us to participate in regularly, right? And so the idea that everybody needs their own thing and we all have all the tools and all the appliances and all the clothes and all the things across the board in our individual homes is like again a capitalistic hellhole. This isn't a community coming together to share with their neighboring community. This is your family of origin forcing you to get together. And yeah, I just like that's not when I'm building ritual with clients, when I'm doing my own ritual, like it's not out of obligation. It's not out of tradition. It's not because it is expected by other people. It's about consent, informed consent, and autonomy, and enthusiasm, and meaning making, and collaboration. Like that's this is just an old, dirty. I was gonna say like an old dirty shoe. It's just like an old tradition, you know. I don't know what I was going with the. My brain just misfired on the old dirty shoe. It's just an old tradition. It's really so devoid of meaning that even if you're doing some sort of gratitude practice around it, I guess that's fine. But the structure is just rotten, you know, like there's nothing salvageable in that. And so if you're participating in it, I'm not saying like don't go to Thanksgiving, and I'm not saying you're a bad person for it. I'm saying if you have a feeling of yuck or if you have a feeling of ick, that's coming from this moral injury. And you might not be in a position of power. You might not be in a position where you have the resources to be able to exist in a 24/7 life where you're aligned with your values. And that's sucks, right? Like that's the catch 22 of you might feel gross about this and you might also have to participate in it. And so it may be coercive in that way. It may just be community is lacking elsewhere. And so what else are you going to do but go home for the holidays? So I think there's a lot of stuff here. Just thinking through, I did jot down some talking points. Look at me, solo episode, planning it out a little bit. Um, yeah, I mean, there's just so much there. I think Thanksgiving is dramatic because of politics. Like again, I don't know. I would say it's not worthwhile to go home and debate if the debate is going to be is grooming and raping a 15-year-old pedophilia or not. Like if your family's so far down the mega rabbit hole that we're gonna debate whether um, sexually assaulting a 15-year-old is less morally reprehensible than sexually assaulting an 8-year-old, like yeah, I don't think there's any healthy way to engage with that conversation. Hey, none of that's legal. It's all pedophilia. A 15-year-old can't consent any more than an 18-year or than an 8-year-old can consent. So like, I don't know. If your mega family wants to debate what the definition of pedophilia is and when it's okay to groom and molest people, probably don't see your family. I do think when it comes to moral injury, I can't give you the cutoff point. So again, this is Jeremy the person more than Jeremy the therapist. Um, but you should be aware of what your cutoff point is. It should not be this empty eternal well that we're drawing from on what we're willing to tolerate from other people. If the political debate and the political discourse around the Thanksgiving table is going to be, is it okay to rape a 15-year-old? Probably don't go to Thanksgiving. Um, and again, I mean, in the time of Trump, like these holiday things, I've seen so many millennials. I work with a lot of millennials and Gen Z folks who are just more comfortable not engaging in these traditions because it's so harmful. Like, again, is fascism okay or not? Is a non-starter. Is it okay to be openly racist? Can you deport Black and brown people while allowing white South Africans into the country? And like that's such an obvious example to me of like racism where again like I'm not interested in debating with anybody who wants to say this administration, this regime, Donald Trump himself isn't racist. Like obviously he is. Um, Also Stephen Miller, also the Heritage Foundation. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's a tradition that is worth that. I don't think it's nice to see cousins and aunts and uncles and everybody. I don't think it's worth grandma's last Thanksgiving to put up with that level of harm, that level of mental unwellness. Um, and I think the coercion comes in as, again, so let's use like politics or religion, right? Like, don't tell Nana you're gay. Don't make people use your pronouns. Leave your partner at home. Whatever sort of like hateful bigotry might be coming from that, coerced under the idea of it will upset someone else. That's coercion. Grandma will be disappointed if you don't come. Your siblings are flying in from out of state. That's coercion. And again, if you're left in this double bind, it's a thing that we talk about in therapy, especially around schizophrenia. If you have this double bind presented to you where you're going against your ethics, or um, you're betraying the peace, or you're betraying yourself, like that's not a good environment to be in then, because that damned if you do, damned if you don't isn't good for our system, our brain, our body, like our environment, our physical living space in our bodies is damaged by that. That's harmful. Um, and I think, when you're coming from a marginalized community, then you also have hypervigilance because you are having to protect yourself. You are having to protect now mom or sisters or nanas or Uncle Bob or whoever it is. You have to protect them. And you have to work on like keeping everybody appeased. And so, like, your system's on high alert. You're in fight or flight, freeze or fawn. You're in survival mode. For a lot of us, our family of origin wasn't particularly intentional or healthy with boundaries. And so, we're in this trauma response mode, we're in this survival mode, and we're in this ecosystem, our family of origin ecosystem, that tries to force us into our old roles. What role we played when we were growing up is often what happens when we're around family of origin, especially the more people we get around. And so, like, our system's just on fire, right? Our threat assessment is going off, which is why I think people get so stressed and spend so much time talking about these things, over and over and over again. Um, and some people, again, like when I deal with complex PTSD, right, working with religious trauma, it's not often it's often singular triggers might set something off, but there's also the environment of fight or flight, freeze or fawn, that trauma response environment. The environment you are in is unsafe. And so your system is already going through those trauma responses, even without a particular singular trigger starting things off. And again, and then this sort of cultural pressure comes in and says, "'Tis the season to be jolly. Where's your holiday cheer? Isn't it nice when family gets together?" And I think there's all these dismissals that happen of like people's lived experience of, this is stressful, this is traumatic, this is dramatic, this is harmful, this is unhealthy, this is unsustainable, whatever it is. Like, this cultural message on like, how dare you be a Scrooge or a Grinch, you know? And again, I'm not opposed to the giving. Like, I'm here for mutual aid. I'm here for communities stepping up for each other. I am here for giving to the needy. I'm here for a redistribution of wealth, right? It's not that part that's wrong. It's the environment, it's the casing, it's the structure, that gets put around that makes, I think, that become really inaccessible for folks. Um, let's see. Yeah, and again, ritual is natural. Humans throughout Homo sapien history have been participating in ritual. Communities have been participating in rituals, whether that is the family community, whether that's a town or a village, whatever that is. Like, ritual as a shared experience, marking the passage of time or celebrating something, is important to us. That's pretty hardwired into our systems. And so, again, there's moral injury in participating or being coerced into or witnessing some of these things. But there can also be like a different form of moral injury for having those boundaries that are so rigid. And I'm not saying rigid in a bad way. Like I don't see my family on the holidays, but there can be so much harm that's done in missing out because we do crave that connection. We do want the space, we want the container to acknowledge the passage of time, the accumulation and redistribution of needs and resources. Again, a lot of this stuff seasonally in North America is this is a time to hunker down and we've brought in the harvest and we have a bounty and we need to eat some of it before it goes bad. And some of it's going to get stored away, those things that won't go bad. But like, that's sort of like the Yule festival timeline of like we have to have this big festival to eat all the things that are going to go bad. We're gonna eat the animals that wouldn't make it through the winter. And like, yeah, we could be like bummed out and stressed out all the time about that, or we could get together with our community and share resources and celebrate that we're going to get through it together, or celebrate that we've made it this far. That's again hardwired into us. We want that connection. And so I'm a big fan of healthy boundaries. I'm a big fan of not participating in these things that go against our ethics. I'm a big fan of not seeing family that's unhealthy. And there's work to build community. There is effort that goes into finding and connecting and nurturing chosen family. And if we don't have that, I don't know, again, I can't answer this definitively. It's different for everybody. Is it more unhealthy to be alone and crave that connection that you don't have? Or is it more unhealthy to put yourself in a unhealthy family situation and have to navigate some of this moral injury by being around family because the benefit of the connection is worthwhile? And, again, this nuance that I truly, there is no clear cut answer on that. While I don't see my family of origin on these holidays, um, and again, like I say that there are some exceptions. Like if we travel down to Tennessee and see my brother, like I have a great relationship with my brother and his family. I have no issue with seeing a great number of family members. The family I grew up in, like I don't see because we're not religious, and they still are, and it's just not worth any of that noise, right? And we're not politically aligned. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but um, that's not my default as like, yeah, just cut people off and don't see them. That's what works for me and my partner and our kids in order to have like a healthy and sustainable practice. Um, I think when it comes to religion, again, what are we celebrating, right? Thanksgiving in the church that I grew up in was a church holiday. Um, God giving the Israelites wandering around Egypt manna, lots of metaphors around manna from heaven and thanks around the gifts we give. No redistribution of wealth, no like volunteering at a soup kitchen, no food drives, none of those things that might actually be helpful or matter. And maybe we gave like perishable food items to a local pantry or something. Um, but again, I mean, it's been going around on TikTok, right? That girl's been calling churches asking for baby formula after the SNAP benefits got cut, and a majority of them said no. Either they didn't have anything to offer, or they didn't specifically said we don't help people who aren't members of the church. Which, like anybody who spent any amount of time in organized religion knows that was going to be the answer. And then a few people went out of their way, I think, to say, hey, like what there was a church in Appalachia where the pastor was a grandpa, and he said, I'm a grandpa, we'll get this sorted, tell me the brand, the flavor of baby food you need, and I'll go pick it up for you and you can meet me at the church. And like again, like I have two brother-in-laws who are pastors, and I've seen them take someone to the local gas station and fill their car up with gas for them. I've seen them drive someone to a bus station. Like I think there are people in Christianity and organized religion who are doing good, and I have yet to see enough evidence to believe that the structure, the organization of religion is doing anything other than hoarding wealth and land and resources. The exception is the few good people who are living out their espoused ethics. But no, like organized religion is not doing that. And so we have all these social constructs that are geared towards power and control and coercion that are specifically harmful to the queer community, to Black and Brown folks. Again, I'm talking predominantly in North America here. Um, and women, I can expand to some of the religions that aren't North American focused, and also, right, like there are marginalized communities. There's an in-group and an out-group. There's a power structure that goes along with that. And so if you're somebody who's outside of that or speaks to why that power is bad or wrong or not what the scriptures say or whatever it is, you're ruining the holiday, right? How dare you? um, and I see this all the time in family therapy, right? The person who names the systems, the family's problems, the sibling who speaks out about, hey, it wasn't cool, we got spanked when we were kids. Um, Grandma shouldn't say that racist shit. Whatever it is, like the person who names it is the person who is the problem. We refer to it in family therapy as a symptom bearer. Sometimes that is acting out, but sometimes, especially with adults. Kids with siblings who are in their grown years starting families of their own, it is the person who names it who becomes the problem. You have drawn attention to the fact that this is a house of cards that could tumble at any moment, and rather than addressing the issues that created that house of cards, the person who names it is the problem. And so um, there's coercion, there's judgment, there's spiritual bypassing, there's marginalization, there's colonization of our thoughts and our actions that happens. um, I used to participate in more family things than I do now, and like sitting through a prayer is not, it's not that that's particularly, in my personal lived experience, let me couch this. In my personal lived experience, I don't know that that was harmful. In a lot of ways, for me personally, it felt empowering to not participate in those prayers. But again, you're in an environment where, like, yeah, if everybody prays and praying is normal, they're not going to think twice about it, and you're the exception. It's not, we're gonna religious folks over here for a shared prayer or devotion together. It's like everybody gather around the table. All right, it's time to pray. Like you are included in it, whether you want to be or not. Um, and again, I see and hear so many like microaggressions, dead naming, misgendering, um, shitty things about partners. It's just, yeah, and again, the intention goes a long way there. Lots of loving and caring parents try their best and are working and improving on things like that. And then you expand the family circle and you get aunts or uncles or the older generation who has, deteriorating brain capacity and also lead paint poisoning and is, Fox News brain dead. Like, yeah, it's going to go poorly. So the more factors that we sort of stack here, the worse those things can certainly get. Um, and it's just that for it's a lack of choice because you're choosing belonging, um or you're choosing your authenticity, and like that's not a choice. When we talk about like trauma informed care, we talk a lot about informed decision making, offering people choices, providing safety, and getting consent over and over and over again, and not just like coerced consent but like enthusiastic consent. And so the idea of needing to prove our worth or needing to prove our value or needing to like go above and beyond to show that our relationship is real or our identity has value or we deserve to be loved, um, it's a lot of emotional and mental labor to just show up when all that is expected of us just to keep the peace, not even to have a good outcome, right? um yeah, and I think I'm wary of using a term like gaslighting because I think culturally it gets used too much. It gets used just when people disagree, or people have a different experience and they're communicating that. And rather than working through it, somebody's gaslighting. But there is definitely, when we think of gaslighting as a systemic behavior a repeated pattern over years. You can see it intergenerationally where, you know, maybe you're a queer person and you take your partner to Thanksgiving and some shitty things get said and you call it out and then drama ensues. The gaslighting is after the fact where your aunt or grandma or parent, mom, dad, whomever, siblings are blowing up your phone, texting you saying you ruined things. Again, that lack of accountability. Um, the person who speaks up, right? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Is that the thing, right? Like, and then in family context, that's a side to blame. That's finger wagged at. Um, so, yeah, I think there's a lot of body stuff that comes along with this. Holding stress, clenching our jaw, tension in the neck, the lower back, the hips. Um, Heart rate can be wonky. Sleep can be wonky. Um, we can get into those like negative spirals around shame of like, why did I let them get to me? Why didn't I step away? Maybe we had a freeze or fawn response instead of fight or flight. So we ended up staying in an environment that we wish we wouldn't have. I think there's so much shame that could come along with that. And to reiterate, shame is not helpful. I don't think shame in the sense of like, hey, I'm against colonization and also I eat turkey on Thanksgiving Day is helpful, right? Like, moving beyond this and getting to a point of like, what does align with my ethics? What would feel good? What do I have the power to do? What do I have the resources to do? Where can I put my time and energy in a way that is values aligned for me? Um, but again, I mean, so much of the stuff, we're holiday shopping, we're cooking, we're traveling, we're on a different sleep schedule, blah, 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 blah. Like the burnout from this, I think the burnout margin for so many people is very slight. And again, like we're coming off of, 2 years of witnessing a genocide in real time. And then you're going to go celebrate the whitewashed myth of covering up the American genocide towards indigenous people. And like, yeah, I don't know. I think some people might be really low resourced for that. And that's not bad or wrong that you're low resourced. It's good that you care about other humans. And you need to be aware that, like, yeah, it's not a bottomless well that we can just draw more and more resources for. Sometimes that burnout will hit. And sometimes when we get time off of work or when we have a break or a vacation, it hits physically. We get ill. Every semester from college, I came home and I got sick. Um, and with the exception of a brief bout of mono and a tear of my MCL, I was pretty healthy all my college career. And so the mono thing was a misdiagnosis. I was sick for less than a week, even though I did get a blood test that said I had mono. I do have a pretty cool immune system and fast metabolism, but I don't think it's that cool and fast. Anyway, it's just tension I didn't even feel, I wasn't even aware of. And again, at that point, I was very out of touch with my body. But like, yeah, my body let it be known that like when I could exhale, I'd get sick every winter break when I came home. So your body knows sort of where this is going. So all of that sounds like a bummer. Sounds like I am a Grinch and a Scrooge. I am much more of like a Nightmare Before Christmas than I am I don't know. What's the alternative? I was going to say Grinch, but those are not really opposed characters. My metaphors aren't working great today. It's a Wednesday. I generally don't see clients. Um, my metaphors don't need to be great. The what are some things to do? I mean, I think whatever your level of participation or engagement is going to be, it's a worthwhile investment of time and mental energy to do some work around what are your values, what do you what is okay to participate in and what isn't. Again, like people are going to test boundaries. Our boundaries are how we're going to respond to other people's behaviors, not for other people to behave a certain way. And so the idea that you're going to be able to enforce it on the fly is really risky, I think. I think most people do need to do some emotional, mental work ahead of time to chart out what are my values and what am I willing to deal with? What can I let roll sort of off my back? And what do I need to address? And when do I need to leave? And sort of like actually game plan and chart some of those things out. Um, and some of this might still give us the yuck or the ick factor. I generally have an ick factor watching football because the NFL is not a good industry. And like I grew up in Wisconsin and I love the Packers and I text my brother for the full 3 hours back and forth about how the game's going. And so there are things of like ethical, what is ethically tolerable versus intolerable. Again, you might be like, well, that's just excusing it. Like, yeah, major issues with how the NFL handles player safety. I don't love the way that owners and people who are not involved in the competition make more than the athletes themselves. And certainly the way that athletes are treated after their playing days are done. So, like, yeah, I have lots of issues with that. And, um, it's not such a coercive system. I'm not going to do a whole video on the NFL. Dang it. Yeah, we all do things that feel icky or gross and like maybe we have some cognitive dissonance about. That is watching the NFL for me. And when we think about like ethically tolerable versus intolerable, like, yeah, what is our actual boundary? What is that line in the sand where we need to stand up or say something or leave or whatever that reaction is going to be, whatever that enforcement mechanism is going to be? What is that? What's tolerable? What can we deal with? What is not worth our time or energy? My grandma says, bless her, but has said some racist things for a long time. And at this stage in her dementia and her advanced age, there is no utility or benefit to saying anything about it. Um, I don't see her very often. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, again, this isn't about earning social justice warrior points or performative morality. This is about like your mental health is, are you doing things in alignment with your values? Do your actions match up with your value system? And ideally, it's our feelings and our thoughts inform our actions, which align with our value system. That's what I refer to as congruence. That's sort of how I define it. And that's temporary. We don't live there. And in something that is, um, was never up to us, that we did not get to consent to being born into a culture that does things this way, um, we're probably not going to get the thoughts and feelings to align with the actions and the value system. The pieces of that that we control are the actions and value system. Thoughts and feelings happen to us. We experience them, but we are not in control of them. So I've said this a few times, but consent-based participation, you can opt in or out. You can opt into some parts and not all of it without necessarily endorsing the entire tradition. And again, this is where it gets gray. This is where it gets morally nuanced. This is where we're maybe not talking about like an ideal situation because you're born into late stage capitalism in a country with a long history of genocide and colonialism, and you didn't pick that. And so there is some version of some of this decision making that might not ever feel totally 100% awesome or authentic. And that doesn't mean it's a bad decision. It means you were born into a system that you didn't align with and that was never up to you. But again, like, I'm such a big believer and I'm not an organized person. So, for me to say this means I really do think it works well. Plan this out ahead of time. It's your fire escape plan. It's your holiday escape hatch. That's an old podcast, an old blog. If you want more information about that, go to my website. Um, the holiday escape hatch. Like, actually plan out what you're going to do. Are you going to the kids' table? Are you taking the dog for a walk? Are you going around the block? Are you going back to the hotel? Are you leaving for good? What is happening when it gets to that point? Um, Plan to only stay for a few hours. This is such an easy one that people don't do or overlook or don't plan. They think, oh, I'll just pop in and out, and then they end up staying for 4 hours, and then that fourth hour is terrible. So um, obviously, I think there's ways where we can build our own ritual, chosen family, start new traditions, work to come up with rituals that are decolonized or are more authentic and more validating for you, that are based in meaning making for you and your community of choice, as opposed to this old tradition you were born into that doesn't have much meaning. Um, I think acknowledging harm, if you are resourced for it, is better than not. But again, like, if you're resourced for it, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting in that. And so that takes the awareness and the emotional, mental work to check in with yourself and see if that's accurate or not. Lots of things. Again, humanity continues to progress, thankfully, even while a specific subset of the society, unfortunately in America, the one that is in control, is pushing regressive things. But like, yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to support ethically aligned groups, nonprofits, small businesses, activism, lots of things to do in these times for people who are dealing with the yuck around the capitalism, the consumerism, the inauthenticness, the inauthenticity. That was a struggle for me around the holiday season. Find a local market, support, your Black, Indigenous, people of color owned businesses, the small businesses, buy local, give on Giving Tuesday. I might, if I'm organized enough, have a link up for that so I can run some discounted rates for retreats. Just basically have a scholarship fund for survivors of religious trauma, for insular religious group disaffiliates, which is the thing I work with and the thing I'm passionate about, and often people who are not well resourced from a financial setting because they grew up in an insular religious group. But again, ton of stuff around that. I usually, often in a lot of my videos, that black sweater, it's not a sweater, it's a polyester spandex zip up that feels good on my skin. But that's from an Indigenous artist, and I follow them online, and I know they're going to have a Harmony Hill artist, for those of you who are in the Milwaukee area and want to check that out. Runs a market for Indigenous creators, and I think the next one is like December 20th. Don't quote me on that. I'll maybe link to it. I'll promote it on Instagram for sure. But like, I'll probably go to that to get another one. My Lebowski sweater, just the zipper broke the other day. It's really sad for me. But again, like, you don't have to do Black Friday sales. Also, typically they're not that good of sales. Buy local, support local, queer, Indigenous, Black owned businesses. And like, build your own ritual with your own people, chosen family, have a soups giving, do a friends giving where everybody brings leftovers. There's lots of options here around participating in things and building your own thing that is ethically aligned. This is just an acknowledgement that the system writ large, culture, capital C, society, civilization, might not be ethically aligned with you, and that's okay. And you might just have to build your own thing then. And the wider community you can build that with, and the more people you connect with, the better that's going to feel. Have a buddy system is a good idea. Text someone if you are participating in a way that isn't super aligned because you don't have a choice. Have a buddy system. Have someone on call. Have a text friend. Have someone you can take breaks with. Have someone who can pretend to have an emergency. Whatever you need to do, have that support system readily available to you. Is one of the nice things with modern technologies. We can usually travel with that. Have time to decompress. Leave a day early so you have time to recover, so your nervous system can reset, so you can resource yourself. And don't worry about fixing it, right? Like, sometimes the system requires system change in order to get better. Individuals can not very often elicit change in system. Systemic issues require systemic change, not individual change. So quit trying to fix your family. Quit hoping it'll happen when we have no evidence that it's going to change. Controlling your controllables, which is you, and if you're a parent or have some dependents, your sphere of influence is pretty limited to you, your dependents, potentially your partner, but not that wider family of origin. So don't focus on that. And again, like, we're probably not going to get, I don't know what Starbucks does for Thanksgiving. I was going to say pumpkin spice lattes, but that's probably the wrong season. I don't know. I'm not a Starbucks person. We're not going to get these things to stop, right? Again, I think it matters to not buy off of Amazon on Black Friday. Great, love that. Wait for Giving Tuesday or buy local on Monday, right? Like, those are good ideas that signal a cultural shift, and that's not going to bankrupt Amazon. Amazon makes most of their money off of AWS anyway, not who's buying things off Prime. But yeah, I think building community is a great choice here, and participating in that is like, I'm biased because that's what I experience now, but like, yeah, you do not have to participate, and that gets a lot easier when you can choose to participate in something that is values aligned and that is healthier. Whew. I don't even know that I covered religion of Christmas. You know, my main talking points: Jesus wouldn't have been born in the winter. It's just a reskin of a pagan holiday. Blah 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 blah. I don't think Jesus was real or existed. Um, as a historical person. So, consumerism. Yeah, we covered it. It's good. Cognitive dissonance, moral injury. These are signs that your brain is working correctly. The question is how you react to it. These are not bad in and of themselves. They're markers that your brain is noticing something is misaligned or unaligned. So that is good. And yeah, so I think just like thinking through what are your ethics or values. I'll link down to a values sheet that I like to use for religious trauma for folks if that's tough for you. But like, if a family member or a society or a tradition is asking you to betray yourself, your value system, I think it's worthwhile to put in the time and the effort to build out something better, to find and connect with something, to reclaim something that is going to be more values aligned and have more internal integrity for yourself. That's a good gift to yourself this holiday season. That wasn't planned. That was a pretty good wrap up. It's a good gift to yourself this holiday season. I ruined it because I'm not even on my recording screen. But yeah, like we got a couple family birthdays around the holidays. Like I am not a Grinch or a Scrooge by any stretch of the imagination around these things. I just think the holidays with healthy boundaries are really fun. I really enjoy the time of the year. I love the season change, first snow. We had a little bit of snow in Wisconsin, but the first snow that's going to stick is a lot of fun and sort of this magical experience. I love to get outside and engage with nature. There's like a certain quietness that comes with a like snowfall that's really fun. We live by a local wildlife sanctuary, and it's not a wildlife sanctuary. What's the word I'm looking for? A nature preserve. And there's a pond that freezes over, and that's a lot of fun to go out in the pond, get the kids, the dogs out there. So, like again, find the things that provide meaning for you in this. Find your reason for the season. Such a worse wrap up than the one I did before. But no, I mean, like, yeah, find what's values aligned, build community around that, connect with folks, like, have a good time. We're self-aware apes on a rock spinning around a burning ball of gas at 600,000 miles an hour. Like, I don't know. Have fun consensually. All right. That's what I got. Keep an eye open for that Giving Tuesday link and some information about retreats, where some of the scholarship's going to go, which would be really cool and fun for the next year. I'm talking like it's the end of the year. It's just Thanksgiving. We got a whole nother month to get through, folks. So take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. Peace.